Hello, everyone. This is Chris Lee of Supagroup from New Orleans, Louisiana. He is here to kick your ass. I stepped all over it. I messed it up.
I had no idea that was coming.
For
that
real?
was good. Yeah,
okay,
no.
You go ahead. You do the real
not.
intro to What's Your Problem. How does it go?
It's fill in the blank whatever town you're in. So we're in New Orleans. Hello, everybody in New Orleans, Louisiana. We are Supagroup, and we're here to kick your ass. And then Biggie.
It's way better when there's a guitar.
Of course.
Yeah, man.
Hello, everybody. We are Supagroup from New Orleans, Louisiana. We're here to kick your ass. I stand accused of a rotten heart, but I'm innocent. It's alright. I take the fifth on my dead man, just a little bit. It's out of sight. Seven loaded weapon and needing your inspection. All I'll be so coy. Need me to play your games. You're not like all the dames. I wanna be your boy. But what's your problem, baby? Listen me. So what's your problem, baby? Let me shake you up like a lemon tree.
It's not the same. It's
No,
not the
and I
same.
stepped over it too. I stumbled on the intro.
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen,
So did I.
Chris Lee of Supagroup and the Chris Lee Band. All right.
It just goes to show you,
Yeah.
you might make it look easy, but it's not easy. It's gotta have a lot of things.
When we were playing What's Your Problem like every other hour on 106.7 The End back in the day, like it was always just fun just because the intro, you know, when you're hearing the same songs over and over again, that was one that I never got tired of.
Oh,
and it
good.
Was just, hello, everyone. We're, Supagroup from New Orleans, Louisiana. We're here to kick your ass.
Yeah.
Like, who starts a song on the radio that way? You know, it's just one of those.
Interesting. Wow, and that was the first station that played us.
For real?
Yeah,
they get picked up on a college rock or anything like that.
Well,
anymore?
for Supagroup, when we went for commercial radio.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how that works. It's like you got to spend a lot of money, but you also have to have early believers. And and the end was. We're like, we gotta get them, and luckily we did.
I mean, Sig was definitely a believer.
Yeah.
He was a super groupie, I would say.
He was. I mean, I'm still friends with all those guys.
Yeah.
Sig and Ginty and who else was there? Vidra.
Yeah, I keep up with Sig and Vidra all the time. Jace Edwards, who used to do the night show, he's the one who named me Tank, actually. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not.
And he actually owns 2 radio stations in Nevada now.
Oh, wow. I'll have to send him some new music.
For sure, man. I mean, dude, one of them's a rock station, one of them's like a mix station, something like that. But it's small town. Like, I'm not trying to diminish him owning it, but it's in Winnemucca, Nevada, which is...
I like it.
Like about 10 to 15,000 citizens in the county, maybe 20,000. But it's such a big signal that every trucker between Salt Lake City and Reno just listens to his rock943.com. Check out.
I've heard of that, actually.
Have you really?
Well, those lists are so small. It's an active rock station.
Exactly.
There's only 77 in the nation.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and we played, when we were going for signals, we played like 60% of the towns they were in. And they were in bum places, every one of them. Mm-hmm. It'd be like, it's in Chicago. No, it's like 40 miles west of Chicago.
It's an hour and a half from Chicago.
The signal gets to Chicago or whatever. Rock Island, Illinois. The Quad Cities. We'd go and play all sorts of these radio fests for free, and in return get 10 spins or something. I don't know. I don't know the ratio, but it was a big game we did for several years.
No, man, it's a strange thing. I know payola is illegal, but there's definitely ways that certain companies have found a way to dance around it so it's not illegal. And not trying to say that they're just outright breaking the law, but like...
It's essentially legal.
But it's strange that, so many different radio stations that are playing any type of mainstream music whatsoever are sticking to some of these old ways of thinking of radio. Like, for so many years, everyone's been saying, oh, radio's dying. Radio's not going away. It'll exist forever. But it's getting a little bit weaker over time, and it doesn't have the same impact because there are fewer people that own stations. Guys like Jace, who was independently owned, he doesn't have to worry about what a board in New York or LA or San Francisco or Chicago is telling him that, hey, you need to run your company like this. He's like, no, that song sucks, so I'm not going to play it.
Yeah.
I'm going to play good rock and roll, and people that like this station like good rock and roll, and they will continue to listen. So
it's sad, honestly, but that's the way. I mean, my favorite station in town or anywhere, but the one that I listen to the most is TIX. Why? Because those DJs play whatever the they want all the time.
It's funny you say that. That might be, and everyone's going to get real mad at me possibly if I say this, and I've said it before to people, never publicly. WTIX might be the best radio station in this city.
Absolutely.
Just because, like you said, they're playing whatever they want, but they're an oldie station, so they play oldies, and they don't, mess around. They're not playing. They play commercials, which can be a bit of a nuisance. That's why people don't like commercial radio. But they're playing like 4 to 6 minutes, an hour of commercials. Like, it's arguably not that bad to listen to.
I'll wait, and the other thing is because they, a typical oldie station is probably one guy programmed it 20 years ago for 500 stations. So it's the same everywhere. Yeah. Because they are doing whatever the hell they want. I have a lot of theories about TIX, obviously.
Well, they have an 80s station now, too.
What I think is the only prerequisite for them playing any song is that it had to have been a hit somewhere.
Yeah.
So, like, how many oldie stations do you hear a song you never heard of once a week or twice a week?
Exactly.
You're like, what the hell is, that's a deep cut from Barbra Streisand or whatever it is, that's a bad example. But yes, it's incredible that the human touch has been taken out of everything else, and I miss it so, and I'm drawn to it still. Well,
the guy who owns the station and has the morning show, Michael in the Morning, he is a wonderful guy, very nice, and he's just fighting the good fight however he can. He's like, man, this is, like, I came up in radio. I'm not the only person who loves radio. I'm going to just make good radio. Like, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything like that. It's like, no, we play good classic hits, good oldies, whatever else. Like, they're just doing what they do. So,
yeah, I love it.
So this isn't a WTIX commercial anyway. So anyways, like I said, this is Chris Lee. You may have seen him in a band called Supagroup that was together for about 15 years. Currently, he has the Chris Lee Band, which has one album that is out, a full length called Protest Songs and Party Anthems, which is awesome. And you haven't released the second album, but you've been releasing singles, right?
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's not going to be an album. It's a 6-song EP, but then after I have 2 songs out, and one of them is doing pretty well, Shinola.
That's Shinola, parentheses, you don't know.
You don't know for our predicting our president wouldn't leave the office. It's all about, like, it's like talking to a girlfriend that you break up with. Time to go. That's basically the vibe. Just the other day, I asked Sean, I'm like, look, I got 6 songs. What if I just did, like, and my band is now scattered all over, so I can't record more. I just have to finish these with what I got. But I could do some acoustics. And she's like, do 3 more, 9 songs. That's a record. Do it. So I might just, over Christmas, just fill it out and say, yep, 9-song record. There you go. Put it out in in February. But yeah, it's good. I'm still having fun writing and recording. And I never used to like to record. I always hated it. Yeah, it was sort of Benji's purveyance. I would try to, like, in the studio is not nearly as fun for me as, of course, playing live or
obviously, like,
or writing.
There's no immediate gratification in the studio. Like, you do it and then they're like, hey, that was great, do it again.
Yeah. Usually that sucked. It's Benji, so he's like, nah, do it again. That sucked. But now I'm kind of now that there's no pressure. I think a lot of it was there was pressure because you only have a certain amount of days, and, like, if your voice is up for 2 of them, then it ratchets up. Like, we got now. I got to do 3 songs in a day. Like, and that's perfect. That's not just you can get through a show no matter how. But now there's no time constraints. I'm like wandering. Let's do it at 2 in the afternoon, or let's come in at midnight, and I'm just going to do 1 song. I'm just going to do the background and do it kind of lazy, honestly, but
stretch it out, man. You got time to fill these days,
who cares?
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. Let's roll it back. You moved here in 87, 88, something like that?
Exactly. Fall of 88, freshman year at Tulane.
Right on. Okay. And you were not a musician when you first came to town, were you?
No.
But you were a music fan, obviously.
I played saxophone.
Are you serious?
And before that, I played piano.
What?
Yeah, I was in one of those families where my mom was like, you have to play an instrument. And I just hated piano so much. So from the age of, like, 5 to, like, 4th or 5th grade, I'm like, not playing piano. But I really regret this to this day. I don't want it. And she's like, well, if you don't, you have to pick another instrument. And so I just was like, okay, saxophone. So then I played saxophone.
Why did you say saxophone?
I don't know. It was just like, I don't know why.
Was it? Well,
it was because I had to do it in band. So the choices are, a string instrument, like it's not like guitar, bass, or drums. It would be like violin, viola, bass, or the horns, which would be clarinet. That seems like flute. Saxophone. That seems like a thing chicks will dig.
Saxophone could be rock and roll.
Yeah.
Though, so, and you were into rock and roll, I assume.
I was into a lot of stuff, not just rock and roll.
Okay.
Like I would say my first love is still like hard rock, but like AC/DC's my favorite band. But on the same day I bought my first AC/DC record, which was Back in Black in like 1980. I bought Freedom of Choice at the same time. So I am I'm a nuts for Devo. I'm nuts for and then back then I had an uncle who lived with us who's like 7 years older. He's Chinese, so he was like he took Casey Kasem's Top 40 as like the Bible, like how to know what was going on in pop culture.
Yeah.
And so it was the end of disco. So like I'd grow up watching him practice his disco moves to be the Bee Gees. So I love the Bee Gees, and then actually my next favorite artist would have been like Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Like
he was the king of pop,
the king. Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Anita Baker. I loved. I had all. I liked a lot of music.
Well, something that we kind of glossed over, which is not a secret to people who know you, is that you grew up in Alaska. Which is, it's a crazy concept to people from the lower 48, as I guess we're referred to.
Yes.
It seems weird to ask this question. Was it weird growing up in Alaska? But
yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing weird about that question.
Okay. Yeah.
You want me to elaborate?
If you want to, but I mean, you got all the same things that we got down here for the most part, musically.
We
had
did,
radio.
We did, but you know what? Because of its remoteness, you got it later.
Okay.
Like I remember rap becoming big in Alaska like 2.5 years after it was huge on MTV.
Oh, so you guys didn't have MTV up there then, huh?
Well, I didn't. We didn't have.
Okay.
Yeah, cable didn't come in till right before I left, so we didn't have that. So like punk rock, classic punk rock, people are just getting into it in like 82 or 83.
Yeah.
Hardcore 4 years after the fact, in like
learning
87.
about the Stooges, whatever. Yeah.
What are these Cramps? What are the Misfits? And I'm learning about them in like 87 or 9. So it is a weird place. I mean, that goes with all media. I remember because such a small media market, the TV, just the classic 4 TV stations, but they couldn't afford a lot. There's a lot of television everybody knows that I don't know. Because they couldn't afford like I Dream of Jeannie, or Gilligan's Island. Instead, I have the Rifleman memorized back and forth. I have Wild Wild West, Star Trek, but which everybody had. But there's a big swath of TV that I've just never seen.
Wow.
Because growing up there, and it's a weird place also. The most striking thing is. Not the cold, it's the dark.
Yeah. You have weeks of darkness and then ultimately weeks of nothing but daylight in the summer, huh?
Yeah, it really adds a weirdness to everything. Huh. So in the winter, you're basically looking for reasons to not kill yourself, And in the summer,
that's dark, man.
That's where the booze and drugs come in. But then that can accelerate that.
Yeah,
and
where
then
do you get drugs in Alaska? My God.
You have to
manufacture them.
Weed was legal there.
Oh, was it?
So you could just grow it.
Oh, okay.
You could have. It was an amorphous rules. Like you could have up to 4 ounces of weed legally, and nobody defined that as meaning like a whole plant or the buds or. And after I left, I was in college. In the 90s, they rescinded this and made it legal, and now it's back to legal again.
Okay, yeah, I don't follow up with the weed laws of Alaska.
Yeah. It was one of the only, I think it was the only place in America where weed was legal.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the 80s, I think California didn't start decriminalizing till like 94, 95, something like that probably, huh?
Yeah. But I grew up like a good church boy, so I was kind of scared of weed. Like, I'd tried it enough times and gotten paranoid and that I was like, I'm not touching that, and I didn't get back into it till later.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the church thing because I know that your mother and your sister are both Pentecostal preachers.
My sister's not a preacher, but they're both very deeply in the Assemblies of God, yes.
Okay.
And my mother is a licensed minister, went to school in Springfield, which is a hotbed for Pentecostal.
Is it? Which Springfield? Because there's like
Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a Springfield everywhere, you know that.
Oh yeah, sorry. But yeah, she's from Missouri. Ended up going back there to get her master's in divinity when I was long gone, and Julie, the youngest, went with her. So she's always kind of had this streak in her.
Well, is this true? Did she take all of your records and burn them at one point in time?
That is not true. She did it twice. She did it twice.
Oh, man.
And even more alarming and more scarring than that, I was a huge comic book collector, and she burned all of those.
Oh, wow. Those are serious money these days, I'm sure. Like 40 years later or something. You know.
I had quite a collection. I was very anal about it. So I had...
the plastic and everything.
I had the plastic and the boards, and then I had an Apple III computer, which had a very nascent version of like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So I had every comic book cataloged, what I paid for it, what it was worth at the time. So here's the story about that. So at 13, my mom believes I'm rebelling, which I am, but believes it's because of the devil.
Ugh. All right.
And so I have all these records and tapes, and I'm really into heavy metal, and she just takes them all and burns them one day when I'm at school. All like Ozzy, Sabbath, everything. And I'm just so furious. And then 6 months later, it didn't take, I guess. And I came home and my comic collection was being burned in the fireplace.
Oh, man.
I had an arch enemy.
Yeah.
Of stuff I liked. And somebody that wanted to kill all the stuff I liked.
That is
it was bonkers.
Insanity.
Such bonkers insanity. Yes, that's the word for it. Insanity.
Well, you guys get along now?
We get along, as long as we don't talk about politics.
Okay.
Fox News isn't on.
All right. Well, it's funny, I guess. Obviously, it didn't take, I mean, did she really think that she was going to be helping the situation by burning your records and CDs or tapes, whatever?
I often wonder, if she hadn't done that, would I have gone so far the other way?
Yeah.
Maybe I'd be a preacher now.
Yeah, or, an accountant or something. Since you're already good at cataloging and keeping track of things and making databases as a preteen,
Yeah.
On your Apple III. Oh, man, the Apple III.
The Apple
Those
III.
were the days, right?
Right? Yeah.
God, that is insane. And, well, how much younger is your brother Benji?
He's the third of 4 kids, and he's 7 years younger than me.
Oh, there is that much difference. I didn't think it was quite that much. But he was seemingly playing guitar early on, though, too, huh?
Yeah, that fall of '88, I came home with a guitar, and it was like a copy Telecaster, and I left it. I let him have it. And by the time I came back, that was at Christmas. By the time I came back that summer, he was like a guitar prodigy.
No kidding.
He just sat down and just practice.
And the best I've heard, sorry if you were about to say something else there, but like I said, I didn't think you were a musician until you got here, because I had heard it or seen in an interview that you joined a band when you were in the dorms your freshman year, and correct me if I'm wrong on the title, Critical Dump is the name of the band.
I wish I could correct you on that, but that is
the
true.
accurate name, Critical Dump.
Critical Dump.
Which is a 2-lane dorm band, I guess. What dorm were you in?
So I was in Sharp Hall.
No kidding. What floor?
3rd.
Yeah? Short or tall?
Short.
I was on 2 short. How about
Come
that?
on.
Yeah.
Were you an engineer?
No.
That whole floor was engineers when I was a freshman.
They just mixed it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was in 3rd floor Sharp first year, and then Monroe 7 second year. And really, that spring, I didn't bring my saxophone to school, but 2 of my best friends who'd become later, they'd be in the band with me. One wanted to be the singer and one wanted to be the guitar player, and we got a drummer and we need a bass player. You're the bass player, and handed me a bass. I'm like, I've never played bass, and they're like, any idiot can play bass. And it was true. I was that idiot. And I loved it. That's the thing, is neither those guys, one of them's got a PhD and teaches English, one's like a dental surgeon, and I'm the one, the last guy invited, who did it for a career, you know.
That is great.
Of course.
That is great. Well, they were engineers, and if I'm not mistaken, you actually hold quite a beautiful degree in cellular and molecular biology. Is that correct?
So after I got out of undergrad biology at Tulane, I wanted to go to film school, of course. That makes logic.
Obviously.
That follows.
Yeah.
But
all the biology students end up going to film school, especially at Tulane. Yeah.
But I didn't get in anywhere because they were like, oh, yeah, you need to send in a portfolio. And I was like, what's a portfolio? And they were like, you got to actually make a film or something. And I was like, oh.
You're supposed to teach me how to do that at school, right? Yeah.
So I called a couple of my professors. The head of the department was one of my professors at Tulane, like one of my main professors, undergrad. And I was like, I need a job. I got to figure this. I fully told him what I was going to do. I was like, I want to go to film school, but I need to do something for the next year. And he's like, why don't you just go to school and get a PhD here? You can be working towards it. We'll pay you. You can be a TA, and so I did it, and I did it for 2.5 years, and I got enough credits that when I quit, I had enough credits for a master's in cell and molecular. But yeah, I was in the PhD program for.
But you did end up getting your master's, right?
Yeah.
So you learned a few things, right?
I learned some stuff.
All right, good, because I have some questions.
Oh boy,
we're gonna do a little.
Is this biology questions?
Yeah, no, this is absolutely to see if you are full of shit or not.
Great.
And I found some basic biology and cellular biology questions. Some of them might be easy. I don't know the answers to all these, and they just came from a website. I don't know what website it was, but we'll see.
Why are you doing this to me, Tank?
Just to see if
25 years.
Exactly, just to see if any of it takes. And the first one, I actually knew this one.
Okay.
A diploid human cell that is dividing will contain how many chromosomes, and these chromosomes will each consist of how many chromatids?
I don't know what a chromatid is. 23?
Close, but it's 46 and then 2. So because
46
the 23,
and 2.
yeah.
Got it.
Okay, here we go. Next question. Which region of the RNA is responsible for binding ribosomes during prokaryotic translation?
Oh man, I don't know.
All right. Well.
Tell me.
Shine-Dalgarno sequence. The Shine-Dalgarno sequence, obviously, everyone knows the Shine-Dalgarno.
Doesn't ring. Honestly, It doesn't ring a bell. You think it would?
All right, this one you might know. Which type of RNA is responsible for transporting amino acids during translation?
Which type of RNA
is responsible for transporting amino acids during translation?
I don't know.
tRNA.
tRNA, of course, the classic.
See? Obviously.
The classic.
All right, we should probably stop.
That's good, man. I was not ready for that. Next time I will be Tank.
Yeah, do your homework, Mr. Masters in cellular and molecular biology.
You know, the thing was, as I mentioned, I was really into comic books, and one of the main, and Marvel specifically, the main themes of that is the mutants, right?
Yeah, the genetic
they're genetically
mutations.
altered humans. Human Homo superior, they called them later. So I just was fascinated with the idea that you could design the outcome by with the genes. Yeah. And so when I got into the PhD program, I thought I was going to be like, oh, I'm going to make cats with wings or whatever. And after about a year, I realized, they're like 20, 25 years away. They're going to figure this out, but I don't want to wait. Yeah. Because for a while it is really interesting. Yeah. But the actual applications, they're only now with, I'll tell you one thing, CRISPR is just an incredible new technology
This is a little frightening, but yes, exactly. I've definitely seen like a documentary or two and be like, oh, you can just basically type in what type of kid you want, essentially. What hair color, eye color, what type of earlobes, fingernails,
it's
whatever
pretty
else.
Bonkers. Like they have no idea what they're going to be able to do. So, but that little knowledge I do know about, cell and molecular biology, when CRISPR came out, I was like, when they figure out who owns this copyright, we got to buy stock in that company. And it ended up being 2 companies, CRISPR Technologies and Editas. Yeah. And they were until very recently fighting over who owned the copyright, but everybody has to use their, so it's like owning the search engine in technology. So I bought $5,000 of each company when they were both around $13.
Yeah.
Editus today was trading at 56.
No kidding.
And CRISPR was trading at 155.
Holy hell. Why are we providing you with liquor here? So things are going fine.
That's my stock tip.
Okay.
Editus and CRISPR.
Well, it's too late
CRISPR,
now.
really.
So
Yeah.
It might be too late. We'll see. Well, let's get beyond genetics and such. When you did come to town and Critical Dump was pouring itself over the scene, or I don't know what the word is for that. Yeah,
it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Were you guys playing some decent gigs at least?
Yeah.
Okay.
We played. I mean, it was uptown, but we'd played Jimmy's, Muddy Waters, probably more than anything. We played, Tulane had a lot of stuff on the quads. We would get to do. I think was Howlin' Wolf around back then. We played Howlin' Wolf.
It might have been Rockenbach or whatever out in.
We played
Metairie.
the one out in Metairie.
Yeah.
We played. It was Zeppelin's, but it had a different name. Like we played everywhere that you could play.
Yeah.
And our contemporaries were the Galactic guys.
Yeah.
Who now I'm thinking about it, we played with them on their second show ever.
For real?
They had a singer.
Is that Chris Lane?
With Chris Lane.
Yeah.
So I was there for that, opened for them, and it was at what's that place? That's now it was 1179, but it was a.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Right by Calliope, right?
Yeah, right by Calliope.
I don't remember. I think it was a mob joint or something.
Yeah, it was like a mob joint. So
I don't remember.
We played there for like.
I moved here in 2000, and I had only heard stories about it. So
Monaco Bob's, maybe. Something like. Anyway,
are you thinking of Polynesian Joe's?
No, we just wanted to play, so we played as much as we could. Muddy Waters was probably the most. We probably played there a dozen times.
Well, what was and you guys were a rock band, right?
Yeah, like for our whole career as Supagroup too, we were like one of the only rock bands. Not that there weren't rock elements. But essentially this was a funkier town. The Radiators were in their heyday.
Yeah.
And so all of the bands were some sort of version in that world. Little Feat, Radiators.
Yeah.
And we were just unapologetically like guitars, solos, and I'm not singing, I'm playing bass.
Yeah.
And mind you, and so like I just got sent a photo from one of the guys in Critical Dump, and it's like a picture of us on stage in Muddy Waters, and I am dressed up like my hero at the time, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
So I got
the hat,
cowboy hat, the skinny acid wash jeans, cowboy boots on the outside, that kind of thing.
Send that to me, and we'll have Nick put it right here. What was the rock scene like around here back then?
I don't think we had anybody that we played with regularly. There was.
I mean, Dash Rip Rock was around. Like they're a rock band.
They were like they were much bigger than us though. Like they were one of my favorite bands. Like we ended up opening for them at Jimmy's, but it wasn't like we were palling around with them or on tour with them or anything like that. Who else was rocking then?
I mean, Cowboy Mouth was rock and roll, but they were probably traveling around a little bit by then. I don't know if they were still a hometown band.
Well, so while I was in school, that's when that split happened.
Okay.
So I loved Dash Rip Rock, and then Cowboy Mouth came out. One of their first big performances was on the Tulane Quad, and kind of Dash Rip Rock's fans sort of picked sides then, and I picked the Dash side. Okay. Not that I don't love Fred. And
he's wonderful. I love Fred,
but it was not. I felt like Dash Rip Rock with Fred was, they had the craziness of Bill, but then they had the soulfulness of Fred, and then they kind of, when they became two independent acts, Cowboy Mouth is a lot more soulful and Dash Rip Rock, but they missed each other. I think even they would say that, but Cowboy Mouth was far more successful with the, in the radio world, and so I get it, but no, there was, the rock scene was basically those two bands. I'm trying to think who else. There was like Dead Eye Dick.
Yeah, but there was also like an underground metal scene that was doing pretty well.
So we were not allowed in that. That's also when Jimmy and those guys were doing, Crowbar. Crowbar was happening. I Hate God.
Probably, yeah.
But we never crossed paths. They were very much. It wasn't just metal; it was metalry. So we're uptown college kids, and they're metalry.
Yeah.
So now, I'm friends with them now, but I don't think
you were not cool enough back then.
I don't think so. I don't know if it was cool enough. They played different places.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know that we would have gone over that well with. I'm sure we would have fine, but they didn't give a shit,
Did you guys ever record as Critical Dump at all? Is there stuff out there?
There is stuff. I don't know if it's online. We put out like a couple of EPs. Never made a whole record.
All right.
And we toured. We went to New York.
No kidding.
Up and down the East Coast. It was my first tour ever.
Yeah.
And taught me a lot. It was super fun. My friend Matt was the lead guitarist. He was from up there, so we kind of had it good. We'd go and stay at like
his
family house.
Yeah, totally.
In the city.
Nice.
But yeah, that's probably when I really fell in love with it. Was when I got to travel.
Mm-hmm. You were playing in a band and still finishing up, potentially a master's as well.
Yeah, so the Critical Dump kind of ended it during undergrad, and then that next year, when I was in grad school, I started Supagroup with Benji. Mm-hmm. And even though we didn't play down here a lot, I would go home to Alaska. We'd work. We recorded our first record. Then I'd come to school. We'd make a video. We made a video for China Rock. And I was essentially kind of waiting for him to get out of high school.
All right. I mean, you said he was already like a prodigy the year after he picked up a guitar.
He's one of those people that he knew exactly what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
When he was 15, he'd be down here going to TJ Quill's with me. We'd be sharing my ID. Mm-hmm. I'd let him go in first, throw it over the thing, and then I'd go in. So and then even when he came down, he came and went to Tulane as well. Uh-huh. By this time, Supergroup, or right when he got here, Supergroup got signed, and we were already touring a lot. I mean, he's 17, 18, and so he tells his professors at Tulane, he's like, look, he's in the music department, mind you, and he's like, look, all these other kids in here, they all want to be doing what I'm doing right now. Are you really going to stop me from doing this? He's like, can we figure this out? And so very often he'd have a whole semester where he'd have to write 4 papers for 4 classes, and one would be how to set up a nationwide tour.
No kidding.
One would be how to market a radio single.
Just write a paper on what you've been doing the past 2 months. Yeah,
and that's the last 2 or 3 years of college were like that for him.
Wow. So did he end up finishing doing that? No kidding.
He has a degree in music composition.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, something, and I don't want to talk too much about him. Not that it's unnecessary or whatever else, but maybe I'll wait till I get him on the program or anything like that. But watching him play is he is the next generation of the Chuck Berry or the Angus. He very much has picked up that same rock and roll everything. From just the way he stands, the way he strums the guitar, the way he swings his head around, everything.
Yeah. It's all on purpose, too.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to think about it now, but believe me, there's nothing that isn't thought through, And that's why I really loved playing with him, because a lot of people can solo, but he would write his solos. His solos would be something that you heard. It would be the same every night, or essentially. And he's just I really do miss playing with him for that, because first of all there's that, but then there's also he can sing. Yeah. And now I play with guys who are afraid to sing, afraid of the microphone. He's not afraid of the microphone. So that, it's a lot of, but that was him. He was a maniac.
Well,
so was I, though.
I have this. Yeah, you guys are no doubt maniacs, and it's funny you brought up the freedom of choice thing, because I did plenty of homework, like I said, and you were quoted as saying that when you were first building Supergroup, you essentially in your head were the sound of AC/DC with the mentality of Devo.
Did I say that?
Something similar like that.
Wow.
I don't have an exact quote, but
that sounds about right.
It's, I think it was AC/DC meets Devo or something like that.
Yeah, and by the mentality of Devo, what I meant was
the silliness, the fun,
and the if you're a big fan of theirs, they have their music is so different. They create their own little world. Mm-hmm. Their lyrics and music inform this. So I was like, I want I want that. I want this. You're coming into our world, and and the other main directive was, this was actually the first one, was I want to play songs that I wish I heard on the radio.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah,
you know, I just didn't think there was no monster rock bands walking the earth, with the exception of maybe Metallica.
Yeah,
in the 90s, you know, where they are just crushing. And I was like, why is nobody crushing? I want to crush.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it, man. Like the guitar-driven rock and roll seems like, you know, it's something that I feel like I grew up with, and obviously you did too. It's the sort of thing that, did we just take it for granted for all those years, that now it's just it's an idea of the past. It's an oldie.
Perhaps, you know, I think about that a lot. I'm like, well,
there's plenty of metal out there and people trying to shred, doing crazy things, but just as far as like,
it's not the same.
Foot thumping, head banging, whatever else, rock and roll, you know, party anthems, as it were. You know.
Yeah, I don't think. I think there's a couple of reasons for that, but especially today, I think a lot of it is where does the music get made? It's usually like one or two people in their bedroom studio.
Yeah, I mean, look at a Billie Eilish or something like that.
You think about, like if you did that, and your circumstances, you're getting high, and like if you write a song and you're high, you're gonna write kind of a high song.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
More than likely, yeah. More than likely.
If you're, well, you know, one of the things we always did was I would never finish a song until like the very last minute. So we'd be playing songs where it won't be half the words. Do it live, because that's how I'd figure it out. I'd be like, and then try out a different chorus for, you know, alternate choruses each night, and be like, that one's working, I'm gonna do that, go with that, you know. So if you're writing in front of people, your main goal is to get them excited.
Yeah.
If you're writing in a room, your goals are different. I think.
That is a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Something I saw in my notes that I had to bring up. Before you landed on the name Supagroup, is this true that the name of the band was going to be Shit-Ass Punks?
Close.
Okay.
Before Supagroup, Benji and I put out 2 full albums under the moniker Shit-Ass Punks. Okay. Yes. And it was a trio. I played bass, he played guitar. We both sang.
Okay.
And we had a drummer. And we got pretty far with that band. Like, unfortunately, this is before we got good at being live. Okay. So we made these records. We toured. We toured the West Coast. And at the end of one of these tours, we had a showcase for a big record company that I had somehow finagled in Los Angeles at the, wasn't the Viper Room, the Opium Den. Okay. And we did everything wrong that night. We absolutely, you know, I realize now, like, if you play a showcase and they're like, we want you to play at 8, you play at 8, because they got dinner plans or whatever.
Yeah, I believe the great Pete Jones has a self-titled album that is called, it's the Viper Room, right? Yeah. The Viper Room. It was, set up your stuff, play your songs, pack up your and get the out, something like that.
I have been through that. The Viper Room is notorious for that.
Well, for showcases, like, you're basically paying to play. Yeah. You know? Yeah. It's oh, cool, you want to play at the Viper, or you want to play at the Opium Den or whatever else. Like, yeah, you're on at 8. Yeah, it's 7:57. You have 3 minutes till your set starts. Like, oh, you can start whenever you want. Yeah. But you're done at 8:45. Yeah,
you're out the door.
Yeah. Yeah, done means your stuff is off the stage. Yeah.
It's on the street.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we that up, and we weren't very good. And so from that day forward, I realized, okay, well, we can write catchy songs, but we got to be able to play them live. So that was the thing. The third thing with Supagroup was get good. Yeah. Practice. And practice includes playing shows. Like, I always thought, and even to this day, the last thing you did is the most awesome thing. Okay. You familiar with that? You know, like, oh man, that new song's so great. Oh, that last show was so awesome. And then 10 shows later, you're like, this was way better. that was bullshit.
Crap.
And so it's kind of like D&D. Mm-hmm. Like, you can practice and say you do 10 practices, that's worth 100 experience points. Yeah. But for every show you play, one show is like worth 100 experience points. Yeah. You know, so the more you play, the better you get. Some bands feel like, oh, it's a small town, you're going to burn out your audience. What fucking audience. It's not for them. It's for you to get good. And then when you leave town, then you destroy.
Yeah.
Is the idea. Mm-hmm. Now, other people have, like my good friend Scully from Morning 40. Mm-hmm. We go back many years.
I'm a big Morning 40 fan too.
I always love that band. I love his new stuff. He's such a good songwriter and such a great performer.
He's doing a Rough 7, is that what he calls it now?
Rough 7.
Yeah.
I think he's even got a newer thing now.
Oh yeah?
It might be under his own name. But I told him a very similar thing to that. I was like, yeah, why don't you guys ever tour, man? We're going out there and it's fun and and he's like, I just want to be big in New Orleans. Like that, like a completely foreign philosophy to me.
Yeah.
And him and Alex McMurray and all, you know what? Maybe they were right. Those guys are doing way better than Supergroup. You know what I mean?
Were they though?
At the time, I just didn't understand, like, if you could tour and you were good, why wouldn't you? But looking back,
Well, for a city like the city is an anomaly. I know probably everyone in every city says the same thing about their city, but this one truly is in a lot of ways. And it's come up at this table many times in that, like, bands touring, like, dude, if you want to grow as a band, you're going to have to build your audience, and you can't build your audience by staying put. Right. And it's hard to tell the guys that are playing 4 times a week on Frenchman or Bourbon or wherever else, like, hey, stop making money and come on the road and and sleep on floors with us so we can build up an audience for a couple of years, maybe.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, only a couple of years,
No, I get both sides of it.
Yeah.
I guess another part of it is I really enjoyed the adventure of it. I loved reading any book with an adventure in it. Was my favorite. So we had all these little, touring peccadillos we do. Like, as soon as we get on the I-10 on the beginning of a tour, I'd roll down the windows and scream, "Road trip!" Because it was the unknown, the what are we going to encounter? Sleeping on floors, Once you've done it a couple times, it's not so bad.
Yeah. Well, and you're young enough to not care because you're still like, hey, this is rock and roll, right? This is exactly what we signed up for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're getting what you paid for.
Exactly. And I mean, you guys definitely paid your dues. Tell me about some of those early days and ugly memories in the van, hitting the road early on.
Well, sort of the beginning of Supergroup, that part where I said we played a lot. We played New Orleans just, once a week practically, everywhere. I got out of school. I got a job at Howlin' Wolf. I was their flyer guy for Jack Gretsch. This was pre-Howie Kaplan. And Jack liked me and his wife liked me, and they ran the place. And pretty soon they let me do more. They were like, this is when online stuff starts happening, so I become their online marketing director, and then I become the assistant talent buyer. And what that really meant was I'd be like, Jack, this Super Suckers band is really doing good around the country, and you really should get them to come here, and we should open for them. And that's what I did for
and ultimately that was a good move, because then you hit the road. That was your first opening tour for a band, right?
That was the first tour we ever did. It was like, we had played with them in New Orleans several times. We drove 8 hours each way to Atlanta to play a one-off with them.
Yeah.
First of 4 for $50.
No kidding.
And I think Eddie felt so bad for us, he gave us a tour that night.
This isn't enough money to get you guys home.
Yeah. So the beginning was really just trying to get in front of as many, play as many shows as possible to get good, but also to try to, the goal was to get on the road. And once we did the Super Suckers tour, I remember we were trying to scrape together enough money to make the first Supergroup record. And we played The Mermaid, and Jeff Treffinger had a half-inch tape in the back and a 16-channel board.
All right.
And he recorded the show, and me and Benji were like, this is great, let's just put that out. And it was like a 45-minute CD. It was just the our live set.
The Live at the Mermaid Lounge.
Live at the Mermaid. And there's seriously 20 people in there, maybe 30. But they're making a lot of noise, and we did have a good night. So when we go to to send this out to clubs, I realized later, they're not having to imagine what they're going to get.
Yeah.
This is the show. It's not like, here's the record, maybe they're good, maybe they're not. This is the show. And so we started getting, Benji and I were doing all this. We were booking ourselves 3-day weekends. It would be Houston, Dallas, Austin, three nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Texas, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in like Florida, Georgia. And we just did these little spokes out of New Orleans. We did that for several months, built up sort of a regional thing. Then we got the Super Suckers tour. And then soon after that, we played South by Southwest. We had played it before at an off night, like a not official show. And then this night we had an official show, but Charles Attal, who went on to, he owns Stubbs.
Okay.
And went on to start C3, the promotions company.
Yeah.
He loved us for some reason, and he was like, I want you to play one of my 2 a.m. Late night shows. So he booked us in front of I wish I could remember the name of the band. It was a really inappropriate pairing. It was like an older sort of soft punk rock band. They're cool people, but they had to go on at 3 and we went on at like 2:15.
Okay.
And packed room, 1,000 people, super drunk, and that's where we shine. It's like drunk rock, rock and rollers. And we demolished this place. And the next morning, the Austin Chronicle, they had the pull out for South by Southwest. The cover is Benji just going, right? It's like from like right below the stage. And from that moment on, I had already sent the CD out to everybody, and all of those bookers were in town or knew somebody was in town, and then our actual showcase was that night. So every major club in the country basically saw us that night.
Wow. And
from then on, we had no trouble booking ourselves, and then we had to get to the next step where we open for people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was probably the biggest break
like
we got.
Paradigm shift, or
that was the break. Was that party?
Yeah.
It was, I wish I could remember the name of the band. I'll have to send it to you.
Okay, please do. My goodness.
I felt bad for them. They were just like, this is bull.
Let's talk about opening up for bands. Like you said, like you had no problem hopping on big tours. Tell me about Uncle Alice.
Uncle Alice. Well, that was also that was another big moment for us.
It was also kind of after you guys had already started getting a little bit of radio play, and like you said, you started touring a lot more and getting better gigs.
This is probably maybe a year after what I just described to you. So we'd done the whole country several times on our own, and maybe we did like a couple tours with Fu Manchu, a couple with Super Suckers.
You guys did like a couple early, was it Foo Fighters gigs maybe?
We've played with them like 5 times in our career, but it would always be one-offs.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why we always seem to end up with them.
Because you rock too hard, man. They don't want the competition, right?
They like it. Well, I'll tell you, the first time we played with them was they did a fan show. It's like a reward for their fan club. Okay. So, and it's at the Howlin' Wolf. I must have still been working there. That's probably how we got it.
This was... Oh no, this is 2004, because this is right before I started working at 106.7 The End.
Okay.
Because I absolutely, it happened.
Were you at this show?
No, I was not at the show, but like I became an intern there. Like that was probably May or something like that.
Okay.
That was absolutely like 3 weeks before I had started as an intern or something.
Well, everybody in town wanted to get this gig,
obviously, and
I then if it was 2004, I wasn't working there, but somehow I got us on the show. And well, mind you, these are like the superest of super fans for Foo Fighters, so they're so excited to see them, and they are so pissed when they find out there's an opening band.
It's probably the case for a lot of these acts, especially the Foo Fighters, I guess. But
it was probably the hardest first 15 minutes of any show I've ever done.
Really?
They were just like,
even for a hometown crowd.
oh, they none of these people knew who we were or had seen us. There's like a lot of girls. Like, girls don't like Supagroup, basically.
I'd say that you have a dude-heavy audience.
And they were just so annoyed. And then we finally won them over. But more importantly, we won over the Foo Fighters who liked us. So that became a thing. So like many years later, we did Jazz Fest on the final Sunday opening. It was us, Galactic, Foo Fighters, Neville Brothers.
Nice.
And that was a great day for us.
Yeah.
You know? So, where was I in this?
And we were talking about Uncle Alice too.
Okay, so Uncle
Alice Cooper. Tell me about Alice Cooper. How did you first get in cahoots?
So that was probably like 99. 2000, House of Blues. We played there often as an opener. They asked if we could open for Alice Cooper, and this is a little place for him, 1,200 seats or whatever it holds in there. And Alice Cooper has such a stage show that we had to play in front of the curtain, the closed curtain. So it's about 3 feet wide,
3.5, 4 feet. Yeah.
Plus there's monitors and lights and shit. So it's like, it's treacherous. Luckily, we had tons of experience on a little stage like that at the Matador. We were just used to like not having any room.
Yeah.
And we demolished that night, and Alice famously said later, he's like, I have never had an opening band open for us that got a standing ovation other than Guns N' Roses.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's quite the heavy compliment.
It was, and I even asked him if we could use that in our press kit. So yeah, take the quote. Okay. So a couple of months later, maybe a while later, a Cooper tour comes up, and it's essentially, I'm trying to think if it's like almost all of America. It's like a 6-week tour, East Coast, a lot of heavy in the Midwest, down the West Coast. We get this tour, and he's playing average 2,500 seaters.
Yeah.
So this was a big move up for us. And also it's a much different, older crowd. They're classic rockers.
Yeah, these is the 50 and older crowd, basically.
Yeah. Which strangely, not so strangely, they get us.
Yeah.
So we do well. I make everybody go out to the merch table. We meet everybody, sign. We sell loads of stuff. It was great. It didn't help our career that much because, those are not the people that are being courted by advertisers and radio. But whatever. We had such a good time, and we learned so much about being a pro, being a professional, how to put on a show, which from your crew on up, not just performing, but like how you approach what you do before the show, what you do after the show. So it was a big learning experience, and I would follow around their production guys who had been with him since like the early 70s.
Yeah.
And they knew they had done this show thousands of times, so I would be like, okay, so that guy's he sings that in that black cowl. These are tech guys. And then he goes back there and he pushes out the the guillotine.
Yeah.
And then they had this whole thing, and it was really eye-opening how professional they were. It was more like a theater show than a rock show.
Yeah.
So, and then we got to watch Alice Cooper and his band every night. And there's a handful of artists. Like, I'll be honest, before that, I was not the biggest Alice Cooper fan. I liked his hits that I knew. This guy's written like 30 hits.
Yeah.
Like the whole night, it's like, oh, I know that song. Holy that too. Yeah. Oh, look. Yeah, that's him. What? And whenever you go to a show like that, a legacy act that has like 25, like every song's a hit.
Yeah.
You realize, oh, no matter what I think about where I am, I gotta remember the bar is way up there.
Absolutely.
So it was good as far as like work ethic and what it takes to do that kind of show. And also personally for the band, not personally, but for the band, we learned how to play to a big room.
Yeah.
And to a big audience, which is completely different than playing in a little club. You play to the cheap seats essentially. And everything you do has to be bigger.
Yeah.
If you got to move around more. You just stand there, people get bored. You got to try to get in their faces and stuff.
Well, I mean, hence that's probably part of the like the Benji swinging his hair around and everything else, and the unison headbanging and guitars and everything else. Like, this, you got to put on the show.
It's a show. Yeah. It's not just a musical performance.
You're not just listening. People aren't just listening. They're watching too.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So that was a big deal. And at this point, we're on the radio. Like I said, we're doing a lot of those radio, where the radio station puts on a concert, but it's like a mishmash of 7 bands that are on the station then.
It's almost like a radio showcase style show.
Yeah. They were just always so lame. And
you kind of have to kiss the program director's ass a little bit. Like, hey, you're going to play my song a couple times a day, right? This
is the whole point of this, is you show up to play them a free show so they can make money, and in exchange you get, spins or whatever.
Yeah, you get spins, and then I'm going to hit this town again and sell 500 tickets, hopefully.
Yeah. So we did that, and then we made a new record. We had a new producer this was fall of 2004. We had done our first record on Food Chain with Trina Schumacher, was really great. But she was more like a pop producer, like Sheryl Crow was her biggest act before that. And so we wanted to get somebody in the rock world, and somehow Benji tracks down this guy named Kevin Shirley, who had done all of the 90s Iron Maidens and 2000 Iron Maidens. He'd worked with Van Halen, he'd done Aerosmith, like their later stuff, like their really poppy, big hit stuff, Kolodner era. Mm-hmm. And somehow Benji talked him into listening to our demos for the new record. And he was like, you know what? He's a South African. He's like, I've got 10 days in December. It was like December or January in New York City.
Yeah.
And so we went up there and made this record. We made Rules. And it was probably our best material. Because,
it's a wonderful album. That is like an awesome CD. Like, I still have it. And I have all of my CDs. I don't listen to all of them anymore, sadly. But I still have all of them, that's for sure.
Thanks.
That is definitely one of those ones that, like I mentioned before, like when I lived in California, like we would spin Supagroup songs off that CD just because I'm like, you people should all be listening to this. Why hasn't this taken off? You listen to every type of stupid rock and roll out here in the desert, and this absolutely should be kicking your ass.
I appreciate that. We knew that we had made a good record because with every band, you're making essentially your first record all the way up to when you actually put one out on a label. And then, so you've had whatever, 8 years to make that right and do that first record. But then the second record is probably all new stuff. In that case, it was. And so it's a big jump to go from like, well, we got 20 songs we know backwards and forth to we got nothing. Let's write a whole new thing. And that was another learning process. But we made that record, we put it out, and then we were promoting it that summer. And that was Katrina, the Katrina summer. And so we were actually on the road in Atlanta on the Thursday before, and we hated this tour we were on so much. And like I told you about the professionalism and stuff, I was like, this is not professional. So therefore, I don't feel like we need to be professional. We're going to walk from this tour. And then that night, this will be our last night. So Benji hurts his back.
Okay.
And we're like, next morning, called the other tour manager, and we're like, yeah, we're the closest if we had kept on that tour, we would have been on the, in the Midwest. But this is the closest we're going to be to home. So we're like, we drove home. Get home Thursday night. At this point, I owned the Saint with my wife and a couple of friends. And go get a drink there. It's after midnight. Friday night. And I'm like, where is everybody? It's normally packed in here. TV's on. This is the first I saw.
Just came off the coast, the west coast of Florida,
And it's like this mammoth thing. And I turn to my wife and I go, if that is on the same track tomorrow at 10 a.m., we're going to be out of here by noon. And so we did. And we went north to Memphis, stayed a couple nights there. Benji and his family joined us later. And then we went to her family's in North Carolina. And then we couldn't go home, right? We had all our home, but anyway, one of us was in Florida. One of us was in North Carolina. One of us was... And then Alice Cooper's people called me and said, hey, Alice wanted to know how you guys are doing. I was like, oh, we can't go home. We're and he goes, well, what can we do to help? And I go, well, if we were on the road, at least we'd be making money. And he goes, well, that's why I'm calling. We have if there's any way you can be there, we start a tour in 4 days in Tampa. And I was like, we'll be there. That was it. We didn't negotiate any of that. I was just like, let's do it. So I called Benji, and I think he's in Florida. And he somehow ends up with Alex Rawls.
Okay.
You know, the writer?
The local writer, for those who don't know, yeah.
So Alex is like, Alex is like, well, I'll go in with you, and I'll make you a press pass. So he went in. I think he worked with Offbeat. So they went in with Offbeat as Offbeat Press.
Okay.
And they go to Brugen's house, where our
Mike
van...
Brugen, the drummer.
Mike Brugen, and where the van and all our gear is, and Benji has to hop the fence, you know.
He's got to break in.
He's got to break in. And Brugen's like, okay, you're going to have to get over the fence, but then once you're inside, there's a key here, and there's a clicker here, and you'll be able to get it out. So he loads up the thing by himself, starts pulling out the van, and the National Guard show up.
Oh, man.
M16s drawn, like a whole squadron of them.
Oh, man.
They think he's looting.
Yeah.
And he has to show them the press pass thing doesn't work. At all. And it just so happens Alex has some copies of the Offbeat where he has a copy of a cover story on Supergroup. So Benji's like...
You guys did the cover in like the year before.
That's right. He's like, look, that's me. That's me in front of this van. That's my van. And they finally believed him. And so he got in the van, drove to Tampa. We all, other three of us somehow got there, and we started a tour and we did not just North America, but Canada with him. Yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah. That is phenomenal. I don't know how else to put that. That is.
I'll tell you a little thing we learned too.
Okay.
When you're playing in Florida, and Alice would say, like, these are our friends from New Orleans. They're on tour with us because they don't have homes right now. Mm. You go out to the merch booth, people are throwing money at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've been through hurricanes. Mm-hmm. Once you get past like DC, they don't give
we don't give a yeah. It sucks to live in Louisiana.
Like, why do you live there? Why would you go back there? We heard that so many times.
Classic. Let me ask you something about looking back, since Supagroup had a phenomenal 15 years of reigning over the rock world, in my opinion. Could a band like Supagroup get away with the songs of Supagroup in today's world?
That's a really good question.
I'm not talking about the sound. I'm talking about literally the lyrics.
Yeah.
Like, could a band write lyrics like that? In a couple of songs in particular. One, Hog Wild, I think is off the table.
No, I struggle with this myself. We just had this conversation. We played open for Cheap Trick. We don't play very often. We played in 2018.
Yeah, you guys have gotten together, open for Cheap Trick, and another, was it Steel Panther? Was that right? And you guys played a private party here for the King of Tux.
That's
King
right.
of Tux.
Yeah.
And I remember watching, man, I haven't seen a Supergroup show in like 7 years. This is awesome, or something. It was like, oh man. I don't think you could sing Hog Wild, guys. That might be inappropriate.
That's what we were. I was like, I feel weird singing this now. Like, we're gonna get in trouble. And Benji's like, yeah, but what are we gonna play instead?
Yeah.
So after we punted once, we're like, let's just do it.
Well, that's just it. You sing it hard enough and rock enough that most people might not catch the lyrics and all the little nuances of all the terrible things that you're saying.
Yeah, it's really awful.
Then there's other things that are right down the middle, like this might have to get beeped, but beating up a goat and Let's Go Get Wasted, like. Let's Go Get Wasted is probably the greatest party anthem of all time, in my opinion. Nothing holds a candle.
I appreciate that. I wouldn't think that about that, because even with Hog Wild, like, there was always an element where we were trying to crack each other up.
Yeah.
And I get, like, if stuff offends people and people are sensitive, and totally get it, but also. It's
have
not
a
about
sense of humor.
It's not if what that is not, I guess, not for you then.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's not to be taken literally. It's supposed to be fun and silly and like, hey, have a drink and laugh. This is fun. Like, aren't you having fun? This is what rock and roll is, you know?
Yeah, there's that. You know what? And look at Steel Panther.
Oh,
you know,
exactly.
They're fully in that.
Yeah, if anyone deserves to be Me Too'd.
Yeah, they have a song called Asian Hooker. You know, and you know, I wonder about how they're handling it. I think even a band like that realizes though you can't. A lot of it is like your new stuff. Would I write that today? No.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Writing it today and being like, hey, we wrote this in 2003, and everyone in the crowd was singing the lyrics back. So
yeah.
Don't get upset.
We
with
were
it.
single.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah, you were single.
It was different. We're trying to get laid and trying to crack each other up, and you know, if you want to get mad about that, I guess get mad. You know. But yeah, it's a touchy thing. Like I think that's the main thing is like I wouldn't do that now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't write it now.
All right. Well, something comes up, and I'm sure you've probably been asked this a bunch of times, only because you're in a band with your brother, and there are so many famous cases of horror stories of families being on tour. You got like the Kinks or Oasis or Black Crowes or I don't know, Donnie and Marie. Are they really friends? I don't know. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Like. Ever any horror stories? Were there any times when it was like, this might be the last time we play a show together?
You know, there's many, but then you realize later, like, that really wasn't that big of a deal. We were drunk.
Yeah, there was a lot more drinking. I think that's something we glossed over about the hard partying, like slamming down half a bottle of Jack Daniels and then be like, all right, time to solo, you know, something like that.
Yeah. Most of our troubles were related to brown liquor or Jägermeister.
All right.
So there became a point where we were fighting. I mean, we're brothers, so we fight a lot over the dumbest over ancient wounds that are reopened constantly. But we realized if we were going to keep going, we couldn't. We had to. That was a lot of energy that we needed to put on stage. So we experimented with this, but first. We were all whiskey and Jägermeister drinkers.
Yeah.
We experimented with, okay, only one of us can drink the brown stuff on a night, and the next night the other one could, and that really didn't work. It didn't really work.
That doesn't work.
So eventually, I just stopped drinking the brown stuff. Okay. Now that doesn't mean we weren't totally lit, but there's certain liquors that really get you fired up, and whiskey, like bourbon was the one where we'd be punching each other, you know.
Did it ever come to throwing blows on stage?
Plenty, yeah.
On stage, like during a show?
Yeah, I remember one time we had I think this was in Little Rock, not Little Rock, there's a little town where like Walmart is and a college.
Bentonville.
It's a college town. We love playing this place, and they had just got the Jägermeister freezer machine, and
what a day for bars.
We were just going. Yeah!
Every bar that got one of those had definitely like time to get a new mop bucket because people are gonna be puking all over this joint. Yeah.
So that was the night where we were. I don't remember too much of the before, but I remember that we came to blows on stage, but it was seriously like one of those moves where it's like, oh yeah, well yeah, and then we both gingerly put our guitars in their stands and then attacked each other.
Well, hey, this is my axe, man. This is my axe.
Let's be professionals about it.
Son of a bitch.
Yes. It was like that. It was always like band first, show, pull the show off first, and then,
That's beautiful.
Yeah. This is fun, man. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. I hope you're enjoying it, right?
Really enjoying it.
There's not a whole lot going on Friday nights anymore. Oh, happy Hanukkah, by the way.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And Shabbat Shalom to all the good Jewish viewers
Mazel
out there.
tov, mother.
Yeah. You mentioned your wife earlier. We haven't spoken about her. Many of you know Sean, the bass player of White Zombie. And you guys have a very cute story on how you met. I've read this before. I read your wedding announcement.
Oh, yeah. So in fact, the reason we got married, or when we did, was because Benji and his wife got pregnant. And we knew, this is how dumb we were. We're like, oh, well, she'll be pregnant. We should be home for that. And then like another month after that, we'll be back on the road. So I say to Sean, I'm like, I'm going to be off the road for like 8 weeks. And this would be the first stretch we'd been off the road in 8 years.
Yeah.
And should we get married? That's how I asked her. Maybe we should get married, that kind of thing.
Maybe we should get married.
Yeah, and so that's how we decided that. But how we met was we had a bass player named Brad Lingo at the time. This is Mermaid Lounge era Supagroup. And
did he have a handlebar mustache as good as Leaf?
No.
Okay.
No,
sorry.
he sort of had a greaser, like almost gothy look.
Okay.
Like, anyway, good look. Most importantly, chicks love this guy.
Brad Lingo.
So I was always handing out flyers for the band, but also for Howlin' Wolf, and I would make these ones that are this big. They'd be either 8 or 16 on a 11 by 17 page, or you have to cut them up.
Yeah.
And he would go around and hand these to girls and be like, "Do you like rock?" That was his opening salvo. "Do you like rock?" And so it was one of those nights. We're on Decatur Street, and that's how I met Sean. Was like we were handing out flyers, and the funny thing was, we went to a place where we both knew this guy that was the bass player of another band, and he had purportedly told Brad that, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna start dating Sean. She's gonna be coming to my show at Checkpoint Charlie. She's gonna be awesome. You guys should come check out my new girlfriend." So we go to and it's Checkpoint Charlie's, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you know, I love the place, but it's just
an iconic joint.
It's great. It's great. It's just like, you know, it's one of the worst gigs to play in town, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, and so they're on stage, and if I remember correctly, they're like a Elvis Costello-ish band, like a trio.
Like,
and
does that even work at Checkpoint?
There's people there, there's girls there, and there's Sean there, and I come in with Brad, and he's doing his "Do you like rock" bit, and I see Sean, I go straight for her, and I'm talking to her and inviting her to a show, and I see the kid on stage that had said she was going to be his future girlfriend.
She's going to be my girlfriend.
And I could just see his face change, because I was just going to keep talking to her. And he was just like, "Oh, this did not work out the way I thought it was going to work out." And then we didn't see each other again for like more than a month. And I'm imbibing late night at what's that place uptown? The Christmas Lounge.
Snake and Jake's.
Snake and Jake's.
Yeah.
And she comes in with her friend Carol, who she did Famous Monsters with, and they were on the way to South by Southwest, and her car broke down in like Metairie. So they were just had to kill time till the car got fixed, and we just spent all night talking. And by the end of the night, I had her phone number, and I was gonna direct her first music video.
Okay. Well, that's beautiful, man. It's a powerful accidental first date.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. And then, we've been together ever since. That had to be like, I think that was spring of '98. So whenever mid-March.
That was, White Zombie probably just broken up around then originally, huh?
They were.
When did they break up?
They were still. I remember they weren't broken up, but it was expected and imminent.
Okay.
Like they had 2 records on Geffen, each sold like multi-platinum.
Yeah.
And so for each record, they were on the road for like 2.5 years.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
So she had been doing stadiums for like, not stadium, basketball arenas for like the previous 3 years, and tons and tons. Like they just had been working so much that when she got off the road, they're like, "All right, take a break. We're happy with how this record comes, and then come back and make a record in a year." And she's like, "I hate LA." They had moved from New York to LA. She's like, and she had been threatening, "I'm going to move to New Orleans. I love New Orleans." She never lived here.
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Oh, well, now you're off the road for a year. You really going to move to New Orleans?" She's She's like, yes, I guess so. So she did. Yeah, so that's how she ended up here.
You mentioned filmmaker, and I definitely want to tangent into that for sure. Especially one that was recently at least shown at the New Orleans Film Festival, the Professor Longhair documentary called Rugged and Funky. Professor Longhair, Rugged and Funky?
Yeah.
Is that the official title?
Yes.
When might we actually see this released somewhere beyond just the single film festival?
Well, we've been working. It's really my director and friend Josh Bagnall's film. Mm-hmm. We've been working on it together for many years, but it's essentially his baby. He's obsessed with long hair from England.
There's a lot of, do not discount the number of international fans Professor Longhair has. Like, it's a shame that he is not nearly as well known in this country, even this city, as he should be. And here we are at Tipitina's,
it's really, and I was attracted to the story for that very reason. You know, the classic artist who doesn't get their due while they're alive, Van Gogh kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And he was a Van Gogh of piano and piano riffs and rock and roll and he's the soundtrack to Mardi Gras. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it had to hurt to hear those songs like everybody's getting fired up to every year, and know that you'll never see a dime other than the $150 you got paid for the session way back when. So, so it is kind of it's a sad story, but it's also a story of you don't make art for money. You do it because you have to. Mm-hmm. And if you're lucky, maybe you get paid for it, but that's not the goal.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed the story and the way that Josh hooked me into helping him with this. Because let me tell you, a documentary, no one's going to make any money off a doc. It's always
a rarity.
Always a labor of love, unless you're Michael Moore or something. The way he hooked me was I was an AD on an independent movie. And he was like a day player as a Steadicam guy, and so we got to talking between scenes, and he's like, I heard you're a musician, and I had just written a movie musical, and so he was like, I want to write a musical about Professor Longhair, and I was like, I just know a little bit about him, tell me more, and so that's how we got into it. Was we wrote a script based on the research he did in making the doc, that we hope to make after this.
I was gonna say, the idea was to make like a biopic ultimately. Like, you had a script, a story, you wanted to be able to have these actual scenes acted out and not just talk about them, right?
Yeah, and a fictional, movie version. Like Ray, or
you'll take some liberties here and there just for story, I'm sure. But it'll be the story of Professor Longhair.
It'll all be true, but it might not be in the right order.
Yeah.
That kind of thing for traumatic. So we have that package ready to go. We're hoping that. So we showed that film at the New Orleans Film Fest. People loved it. I think it's a great cut where we're at. So now we have to go and raise a little money to actually purchase some of the rights for the film, the photos, the music in it. We're making, made deals, but to actually turn around and sell the movie, you have to have all that stuff already bought and paid for.
Yeah.
So that's the stage we're at. And once we get that, I don't think it'll be hard to sell it to like a PBS or Netflix or Hulu or something. I'm sure we'll get a couple of offers on it. It's a strong movie. And then hopefully, if enough people like it, we can turn that into making the actual biopic.
Yeah, ideally, the story is phenomenal, and it's very typical American in a lot of ways too. Like, it's very Americana in that, especially with all the struggles that we read about in the news, TV, everything else for years and years now, and it seems like the sort of thing that might have corrected itself, but it's not. Where a lot of people just have not been able to reap the rewards of the work that they put in.
Yeah.
And this guy, like you said, basically wrote the soundtrack to Mardi Gras, and had to basically quit the music industry for how many years before fans basically had to dig him out of obscurity and be like, hey, why aren't you playing more? Start playing. We'll find a gig for you, and then we'll find a place for you to play every couple of weeks, one of those things, and had the possibility of making it big later in life. Unfortunately, was just not that healthy and ended up dying. Not young, but was 61, I guess.
Yeah.
Not even 62, 61 years old. in his sleep. You know?
It really feels like if he had a few more years, he might have had a chance to get recognized, and he was posthumously. You know, he's classically. I mean, this is a quote I use in the promo material. He's the least famous person in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, that is a sad but true quote. Yeah.
So, but honestly, we've been working on this thing for so long that I'm just
for years.
Excited.
I remember like 3-4 years ago was the first time we talked about it. Yeah,
excited to get it off my plate. You know, more than anything.
Flying around. Sorry.
But yeah, that's a good movie. And have I shown it to you?
No, you have not.
I'll send you the latest cut.
All right. I saw an early cut that had a lot of photos added here, things like that, like a lot of like blank slates and whatever else.
We have Josh made another movie in England, feature, and his editor for that has gone on to become like one of the hottest editors in the business. Okay. So he's one of the editors on the Crown.
Oh. Popular Netflix show. Yes.
He edited the Sherlock series with Benedict Cumberbatch. Okay. He just got booked a gig editing one of those new Star Wars series.
Yeah.
You know, so he's kind of like a big name now. So but once the Crown ended to the Star Wars thing, he had this window this summer and this fall where he's like, all right, send it to me. And he put in so much, like he didn't alter it that much, but he put in a lot more pathos and like emotion, and it's much more of a Black Lives Matter movie than it was before, because we realize, you know, that's where the culture's going, and this is a classic example of how, you know, he basically was over because he's a black guy.
Yeah.
You know, this town is, as much as I love this town was not very cool to black people.
You don't have the softest history. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we're getting it done. We're going to get it out, but we're hoping, you know, maybe by next summer we get it released. That would be ideal.
For sure. No, I mean, everyone that I've brought it up to absolutely wants to be like, oh, when can I see it? It's like, if you weren't one of the 50 people at the film festival or whatever.
Yeah, and even that was like an artificial deadline just to be like, let's have a thing that we can show people and not like, oh, don't look at that one.
Yeah.
This is going to be better in a week. You know, like, no, let's stop. Let's stop, you know. So I think we're actually happy with it enough to stop and try to sell it.
Sliding back into Supagroup, you guys are the featured band in one of the most under-known college movies of all time. I don't know if it's called College.
Simply College, yes.
Simply called College. About some kids that go to a college weekend retreat, basically, and get drunk and made fun of and teased and bullied and whatever else. But you are the band at the party, ultimately.
Yeah, that was a fun experience.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got put up for that.
Have you seen the movie, by the way?
I have seen the movie.
Okay, I've seen the movie at least once. I went to the theater to see it. I was one of the 4,000 people nationwide that probably saw it in the theaters, because I remember when you guys were filming it, and this is digging up some old dirt. Bruggen was still the drummer in the band at the time, and he was dating the host of the morning show I was working on, Vidra,
right?
And said, we're working on this movie, like we're playing a party in Mid-City, like it's weird. It's in someone's backyard. And like, you know, I remember hearing about it, and then when I saw that the movie was coming out, I was like, oh shit, this is the movie that they were talking about, and I went to see it, and I was like, they're not going to get famous from this movie. You know, like, it's funny. There's absolute real comedy in this movie. There are some funny moments, but also very many awkward, cringy moments in this movie too. And I only bring it up, and this is sorry to my wife, Karamia, and she knows about this. I dated the girl whose family owned that house.
Oh, wow.
And there is a particularly ugly scene with a good comedian, Gary Owen, doing some particularly awful things with a sex toy in a bedroom. I know that bedroom. That was the girl I was dating. That was her bedroom.
No kidding.
I did not put that together until after I had stopped dating her, and I was like,
oh my God, that's
that was
great.
the same room, wasn't it?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time in that house. It's
a cool house.
As little time we were on that movie, we were on set like almost a week. And they bought like 3 songs from us.
Yeah.
So that was probably where it came from, was because I've always been a fan of licensing our music. to movies and TV.
That's the easiest way to make money off your music in the 21st century, right?
It's, I wouldn't say easy, but it's the easiest money. You know, least work, but it's competitive. Like back then, you'd get like $5,000 a song, and now it's like you're lucky to get 1,200 or something. Like because everybody knows that they're not going to make money except with licensing or live. So. Yeah, that was a fun, and so we're supposed to be this big rockin' party band, which we are, but it's the director's vision. So they have these cages hanging above us and all around us full of strippers. But we're like I said, we're there like a week, and these are real strippers that the director went and got. So we're hearing them talk about how horny they are and all this stuff, and Bruggen is just like. Like
don't tell Peter. Peter has a family. Just let you know. Like this is years and years ago.
Yeah, that was a fun experience. So that was one of my first. It was definitely my first big time movie thing where I was on camera. You know? And
well, I mean, seemingly as Supergroup was coming to an end in the early 20-teens. You started working on, you worked on reality shows and started doing other things in TV and film, right? So,
Supergroup is coming to an end. It's like 2011, 2012. Writing's on the wall. Like, we do, one last European tour. We've lost Bruggen at this point. And I was just like, all right, before you guys leave, let's make one more record, finish our record deal, and then we'll find somebody else to do the live thing. So... we did that, and I knew I wanted to go back into filmmaking. I didn't know exactly how to do that. When I was a kid, I had been a PA, and but I'm more of a. If you could pick your job, I'd want to be like a writer / producer type, and or on camera. But my friend, who was a cinematographer for the very first Supergroup video. He's from here. His name's Tony Dominici. He is a showrunner for all sorts of big-time reality shows. Like he did Amazing Race. He did Top Model for 7 seasons. And he's like the boss, like the guy. He's like, hey, if you want to learn producing, you'll learn producing. He's like, come work for me on these reality shows, and I'll teach you, And then furthermore, so I had my job where I was it's called an associate producer, AP, on 2 shows. One was called Jerseylicious, and it was about catty hairdressers in New Jersey who fight all the time, and then they're so crazy, they all want their own show, and the craziest, most awful person amongst them was the makeup artist, and they gave her own show called Glam Fairy.
I haven't seen any of these shows.
I worked on a couple seasons of both of these shows with the it was the toughest job I think I've ever had. It would be like 16, 17-hour days. I'm in New York. So just to get to New Jersey to set wherever we're shooting is like 90 minutes. So I'm up at like 5:30.
You're commuting for your long day.
I'm like the strap hanging at 5:30 in the morning to New Jersey. And then I'm dealing with these awful all day, trying to get them to say stuff on camera because we write it all for them.
That's the thing about reality shows. I think a lot of people don't realize is it's not scripted, but it's like, hey, say this, but say it like this.
It's like they call it soft scripted in the scripted world. So Larry David, they have an outline. And they're like, then they
want to get to this thing.
We work. These are the 3 things that have to be said. These are 2 things have to happen, and then they work it out, and the cameras block while they're working it out, and then they shoot it. Well, it's the same thing as in reality TV. We're like, okay, look, Clarissa, you're going to be fighting with Brittany, but remember, this is just the first act. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I want the fight to be about a 3.5. Oh, I can be way bitchier than that. No, Brittany. Save it, because in Act 4, going into Act 4, I'm going to need a 9.5 out of you. Like that kind of... But I did learn a lot. And then Anthony was kind enough... So he showed me the ropes on how to, a lot of there's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's you're AP, so you're in charge of your crew. I had a producer of Bum. He was in charge of the dialogue. Mm-hmm. Eventually, they gave me my own characters to be in charge of them. But then, meanwhile, Anthony's trying to develop new TV shows to pitch. So he let me be his assistant, and he would seriously. A lot of times, we would drive to work together, and he'd be like, "All right, I want something with chefs, celebrity chefs, or maybe not just almost celebrity. Like we'll make them a celebrity." But it's cakes and pies. And I want it to be like a competition. Go. And then like in 2 days, I'd have to have like 5 pages on chef pie competition or whatever.
Yeah, a cake competition.
So he taught me about development too. And in fact, so we're working, by the end of a season, you're working 7 days a week, like 15, 16 hours a day, just shredded. And if you do get 2 days off, he books his pilot in those 2 days off. So now I'm producing, like, we did a pilot for a judge show starring Miss J from she was the big black she taught the girls how to walk. You better work it, girl, on Top Model.
Dude, I've never seen Top Model.
Anyway, I haven't either, but I was producing for
you learn these quick if you're on the scene.
Yeah. So he taught me a lot. He really did. And but I just could not take that reality world because it was just all built on
bad characters.
It's bad people, and the business model is built on exploiting people who want to be famous.
Yeah.
It's much like the music industry,
Yeah, but man, you can at least have a little mystery and mystique, whatever, in the music industry.
They would they would tell these kids, like you're gonna be a star of your own TV show, be like 23. Of course you're gonna do it, right? But what they don't tell you is that you're gonna make $300 a week. You're gonna be working so much that you can't have your own job and pay your own rent. So after a season, they're like revolting, literally like, we need to get paid. We can't afford groceries. So they, instead of paying them, the company will like rent their apartments for them. So now they become more dependent on the production. It's very exploitative.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, it's like owe my soul to the company farm kind of thing,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good lesson anyone out there might be considering that kind of world. Like, just because it might be cool right now, probably not a smart move,
Most people in reality TV don't make money.
Yeah, it's rare.
Just remember that. If you make money, do it. If they're like, oh, there'll be money later, tell them off.
Yeah, sounds about right. Well, you had a couple other shows that were small web series, web series, plural. 2 of them that I particularly enjoyed. One of them featuring Supagroup, you and your brother, called Amped, which only had a handful of episodes and was hilarious. And little like 2, 3, 4 minute vignettes, basically. Not reality, but I mean, it was scripted, obviously, but shot as little mini episodes. What was ultimately the goal? Was that something that you were like, this is actually silly and funny enough that someone might actually want to pay for us to make real episodes of this?
That was the goal, yeah. So before I went to work for Anthony, Supagroup, like I said, the writing was on the wall for a while. It was hard to make money as a band. You made licensing and on the road.
Well, was this show, for anyone who hasn't seen it, Amped, is hilarious. Like I said, I think you can watch it on YouTube still, right?
Yeah, it's still out there.
It's it's almost like you said, the writing is on the wall. You guys are basically predicting your demise in this little show. So
that's what we wrote. So Benji and I wrote that together. I kind of had the outline, and the idea was, well, instead of us being a band that has to make money, but in this only by playing music, what if we could, become a TV show, and then we could play our music, and people would actually give a when we played,
Like Metalocalypse and whatever.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that show, and a lot of rock and roll shows and movies have been attempted, and none of them are like really very good. So I thought we could do it, and I actually asked Anthony directed that for us. So that was really like a spec half pilot. I was like, let's make this. I'll go pitch it. I knew nobody. I was just like, yeah, well, if we make it, we'll have a thing, and we'll go pitch it. And I did, but Just couldn't sell it. So then later, I get the job. In fact, the way I got the date I got the job was I played that Jazz Fest Sunday I just described.
Yeah.
On a May the 6th. It was a Sunday.
Yeah, second Sunday. Yeah.
And I fly to New York and I start Jerseylicious that Monday.
Oh, man.
And I literally finish Supergroup and start the next day.
Next day I'm working on Jerseylicious. Yeah.
And after a couple of years of that, I was ready to go out on my own as a producer. So I started a company called Ursa Rex Corp. And I'm a big comedy nerd, and I was living in New York. So when I did have time off or between seasons, Sean and I would go and go to all these workout rooms, which would be like free or $5, and you'd see the best comedians, but they're trying out new shit.
Yeah, there's something funny about the comedy scene that I've only learned in the past 10 or so years is on any given weeknight in Manhattan, you can see, I don't know, any number of great New York comedians. They're just working out their sets before they hit the road on the weekend,
Yeah.
So they're just and they all do this. They play multiple gigs a night, basically open mics. They're just bouncing around town on any given weeknight.
They're just looking for stage time. Nobody gets paid, or if they do, it's like $25. And so and through that, I became friends with a lot of comedians. We saw Greg Giraldo 2 days before he died.
No kidding, man. I loved Greg Giraldo.
He was
hilarious.
So good. We saw Mark Maron in his 1 hour show in a basement with like 7 people talking about how his whole life had fallen apart. And this was like 2 months before he starts the WTF podcast.
Yeah, now he has like the biggest podcast in the country, basically.
Yeah. So we were like, we felt like party to this, and I knew a lot of the bookers, and I still do. Every time I'm up there, I go and go to a lot of these same shows. And like I was saying before, a lot of musicians want to be comedians. Well, a lot of comedians are musicians too.
They all want to be rock stars,
right?
Man. Yeah.
And one of my best friends in New York is a guy named Dave Hill, who's a very well respected, in his words, like oddball comic. Like he works all the time, but he's not like he's like a comics comic, if that makes sense. And so we were kicking around ideas, and he's like, what if we did a show where he knew that I was friends with Phil Anselmo.
Yeah.
He's like, what if we did a show where Phil teaches me how to be more metal? And I was like, yeah, let's do that. So we wrote up like a 1-page treatment. And this is the unfortunate part about producing. I wish this hadn't happened. This was my very first pitch, where it was like, we pitched it at the former head writer for The Onion. He was in control of AdultSwim.com, which was a feeder into Adult Swim. So the idea was, if you had a success, they would pick you up and put you on the air.
Yeah.
And we went in there. Dave knew him from way back. This guy, Joe Randazzo, incredibly funny dude, really weird guy, but just super smart. And he buys it in the room.
Yeah.
And with one caveat, he's a metalhead, and everybody on his team are metalheads. They want to be there. Yeah. So instead of us producing this thing and delivering it, they want to come down and shoot it with us. So, and I had pitched it to Phil as well, and Phil was on board. So when we got a green light, we were like, kind of like, oh, now we got to make this thing. So Dave and I would write up. We wrote up a bunch of really dumb ideas. Just the dumber the better.
It was basically, this show is called Metal Grasshopper for anyone who has not seen it, and you can see these episodes on YouTube as well. I think they're hilarious. Like, they're just funny, man. It's silly.
They are funny, and
it's caricatures essentially of humans.
Yeah, and we went into it knowing like Phil's reputation as this tough guy, and he knows his own persona, public persona.
He drinks white wine. Come on, how tough could he be, right?
Right? Like,
how tough could a guy that drinks white wine be?
He knows that him doing this is going, like, we know it's going to work.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing you can, without an audience, the only thing you can really tell is, like, does it make you laugh? And we were dying laughing making this thing. Like, it was so hard for the crew and myself to keep it quiet. So I was directing and producing and Joe would help direct when I wasn't there. And we just had so much fun. It was and Phil was just such like a natural in front of the camera. Like, after one day, Dave and Joe and I were like, let's just, why are we trying to tell Phil what to do? Let's just let him. We did this off-scripted thing. We're like, this has to happen. You have to say these two things and then go. And we'd shoot like 40 minutes of cry-worthy.
Yeah.
And then edit it down. So,
that's great. Well, I mean, consider he's probably got literally the charisma of being in front of a crowd or on camera. How long has he been a massively successful musician?
Yeah, since he's a teenager, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, since the late 80s, early 90s. Like, he had put in 30 plus years of like, I rock thousands of people's faces off all the time. What's a big deal?
No big
do
deal.
Anything, you know?
No big deal. And then a lot of my favorite things were where it's just him off the cuff. You know, he's like, he's trying to talk. He's trying to talk Dave into a salad, and he's really selling the salad. You know, like, that stuff just killed me. Like, Phil's really selling the salad. And I love the guy so much. He's such a good friend, and his wife to both myself and Sean. And, the reason that happened is because of Sean. You know, they're like brother and sister. They played so many shows together. And we actually wrote an outline for a movie. We were going to turn that into a movie when we couldn't sell it as a TV show.
Another show that I found online that it seems like isn't, according to your IMDb page. Tell me about the puppet show that is possibly in production. Is that a real thing?
So that's no longer in production, but after I did Metal Grasshopper, I had a contact at Disney Television, and specifically Disney Television Animation. So it wasn't a perfect fit, but I knew this guy, Mike Moon. I knew him through my wife again, because she had he had put together and pitched a TV show about her band, Famous Monsters, as a cartoon. So we knew each other so I came in and I said, hey, I don't have a pitch for you, but I have talent, and we're old friends with Miss Pussycat and Quintron, and I go, you should just check their out and let me know if you'd be interested in me bringing you something.
Yeah,
and he was like,
if anyone needs their own cartoon, it's Quintron and Miss Pussycat.
Or puppet show. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So he was like, looked at their stuff, called me back immediately. He's like, absolutely, let's do something. And so I brought in Miss Pussycat, and I brought in Anthony as well, because in Hollywood you kind of have to have somebody they believe, somebody who's already done it, made a show. So together the three of us wrote up this thing called Frenchie and Jet.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you. Well, the process at Disney this is why I didn't remember, is long and grueling. We came up with no less than like 10 ideas. We developed 3 of them, and we ended up, finally, when we got everything approved, it ended up being like a 6-minute thing. But it took a year and a half to get them to give us the money to actually make something, for them to approve a script and the music. And then by the time we finished it and got it out the door to them, Mike had moved on to Netflix, or to Sony. Yeah, so our guy there was gone, and the new regime was like, we really, really love your imagination.
Yeah.
But we're gonna do all in-house development from now on. So that was it. That was the story with that.
Yikes.
So I got a couple things in development right now. One is, I've had for a few years, my wife's father was one of the preeminent scholars on Ernest Hemingway.
Really?
He was a professor at NC State. His first book about Hemingway won the National Book Award.
Yeah.
And then he went on to write, eventually, a 5-volume series on the man's life. And what makes his story about Hemingway different is he did the research. He went and looked up what this guy was checking out of the library his whole life. He looked up, he read all his letters. He read like what he did on the day before he wrote Old Man and the Sea.
I was gonna say Old Man and the Sea is such a classic. I really, really do like that, but like it's a downer, and I don't normally like downers.
I'll be honest, like,
but it's a good one.
His books always bum me out, and but he did live a fascinating life. So what he found, this is the main gist of his books. Hemingway was the classic fake it till you make it of all time.
Huh.
He moved to Paris. He had a rich wife. He was kind of living off of her, and he's ostensibly doing.
I'm writing,
and he's working for the Toronto Sun, and he has a couple of outlets, but really he's trying to become a writer, and all his shit's getting rejected, and he's writing about a frankly rather boring man, essentially a version of himself. But in Paris, he becomes, through a few key introductions, he becomes part of that what do they call those people in the 20s, a movable feast, you know, all these famous writers and artists. They're trying to get out of America because it was dry and super Christian and so Paris was wild, and he realized that if he just pretended to be this wild big game hunter, big fisherman, fighting all the time, and then eventually he would become that person, and that would help his writing career. So he became a caricature of himself.
Interesting.
He wrote his own character, and then he couldn't live up to it and eventually killed himself. So I've been working with a friend of mine, Kevin Brown. He is half of Bender Brown Productions. Bender is Lawrence Bender from Kill Bill, and you know, he's 5-time Best Picture Academy Award winner, and their TV arm. So we're developing a TV show called Hemingway based on these books.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
so
powerful, man.
That's going to be a good show.
For sure.
That's going to be a heavy duty, like, Crown, you know, period piece. So it's 20s, 30s.
Period pieces are very popular, man.
Yeah.
They're very good.
And Paris in that era. So I think it could be a very cool show.
I wish I lived in a period piece, quite honestly. Like,
what period?
I would probably go. It's easy to just call off one. Early 60s. Early 60s still had like classic mod looks. You know, you wear like proper suit. I'm not much of a hat guy, so maybe not. I don't know. Yeah.
I've thought about that a lot.
Early 60s. I would go early 60s.
If I was in a band, I'd want to be around in like 1972 to 6.
Really?
Yeah. Because that's when the rock and roll bands that I love
yeah, that's
were
when all of a sudden
there.
like distortion started kicking over.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, if it was just me living, I don't know. We live in a pretty cool time. A lot of happened right now.
Our technology makes our life so easy that we have the dumbest things to complain about.
Right. So true.
The dumbest things to complain about all the time. Like it's mind-boggling the things that we just obsess over sometimes. Let's talk about what you are doing currently musically again. I think we talked about it a little bit at the top. You got the protest songs and party anthems that's been out for at least a year or two now.
Yeah.
But the Shinola, it's a fun video. It's a lot of fun. And you just released, what's it called? Next to Never, right?
Yeah.
When can we see another one come out? I know you said you were going to
I think I'd like
record a couple more songs maybe. But
yeah, if I go that route, I mean, soon, like February, I'm hoping.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me cut you off. In a time like this, when, you know, there's a lot of time to record, like you said. You can just kind of go in whenever you want. But you don't really get to play live anymore. Like there's no clubs that you can just be like, hey, you know what? I can do a Wednesday, Thursday night, this small dive, just to like play in front of 25 people, just to play in front of some people and see if it gets a reaction or whatever. Like,
yeah.
You don't really have just like comedians working out sets. You don't get to do that musically either.
No,
you know?
It's hard.
So has it been one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is a good thing to do, but I'm just gonna mentally keep my mind on like developing the TV shows and films, since that is kind of a big picture, heavier investment of your time?
Honestly, the music is the thing I do when I'm not working.
Yeah.
Like it's the thing I do. I guess it's a hobby now. It gives me joy to write, but like you said, it's hard to write in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And I found, although I really love what I did on that last record, it was very, very much like so raw, like what I'm watching on TV, how mad I am about.
Yeah, it's actually quite political in a lot of ways. Political. And you guys never did that with Supagroup before.
Which we never would, you know. Yeah. Benji would never let that, no way. I feel like maybe it's time to be positive, and like I said, I might add a couple songs and make this record like half and half. Mm-hmm. You know, so some serious stuff, but also some stupid that just makes me laugh.
Again, if you want to be in a good mood, and like I said, I have the CDs, but I also have a Spotify playlist of Supagroup songs. That like, man, nothing puts me in a good mood quite like that does. You know, it's one of those things where it's just fun. It's just fun.
Thank you. You know, like that's the point. That is the point, and I'm glad. You know, people react to it that way because we did it. We did it for fun too. You know,
absolutely. I mean, he talks to the guy in Mid-City whose house you trashed for the 106.7 end backyard invasion party. I'm sure he thought it was fun until he had to clean up probably thousands of dollars in damage.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and start wrapping it up. You've been super generous with your time, and if you've seen one of these, you probably know that we usually wrap these up the same way. We talk about food before we close it out. Po' boys in specific. Over at Guys, here on Magazine, Guys Po' Boys, there is a po' boy called The Bomb that is a Stanton Moore original. Just wondering if you have a favorite po' boy shop or place, or, you know, just any certain particular sandwich that you love the most, but more specifically, if we're going to make the Chris Lee and put it on a menu somewhere, what's going to be in the Chris Lee?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. What's that place on Belcastle right up here?
Domalice's?
Domalice's. I mean, it's hard to go wrong.
They're a classic neighborhood joint. And, you know, we give Guys love. They were very good friends. Marvin from Guys was good friends with Galactic. They used to live across the street. Uh-huh. So he has an early relationship with them, and that's where that comes from. And, you know, we just like to give them a free plug because we're fans. But nothing against any other of the 100 awesome po' boy places in town.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there's so many, but
you don't have to. I mean, Domalice's, if that's a neighborhood favorite for sure.
That's a go-to. When I was in the quarter lot, Johnny's po' boy.
Yeah,
you know, and the classic is the shrimp dressed. Mm-hmm. So now, if I was gonna make one,
you're getting your own iconic po' boy that's gonna live on a menu.
Well, I'd start with hot sausage.
Okay.
Dressed.
Mm-hmm. Is that dressed mayo and tomato, pickle, and lettuce?
Yeah, the whole bit.
Standard dressed. Yeah.
Standard dressed. And then maybe like, I'm not good at this. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I have to think about
here. Let me help you out, because I was just thinking of this, like hot sausage and fried shrimp.
I wouldn't be allowed back into my Passover.
Dude, Passover's not till the spring. You got time.
Meat and milk. Come on, man. This is what I do when I make my own sandwich. I made a grilled cheese, but with bacon.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Classic.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. And not just cheese, like American.
You can do a bacon po' boy. No one does a bacon po' boy.
Bacon po' boy. Now we're talking.
No one has that. Dude,
bacon cheese po' boy.
Bacon and cheese po' boy?
Oh, forget it. Let's go with that.
That's a good idea.
That's the Lehman.
That never occurred to me. You do like thick slices of bacon on there. Well, awesome. Bacon and cheese po' boy. And you don't have to leave empty-handed. Everyone that comes on the program gets the certificate suitable for framing.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and you get here, I'm going to take the biology test out of here so you can keep the folder.
I'm going to come back with the right answers now.
No more for part two here. Actually, here, you go ahead and read the certificate for me if you wouldn't mind.
Certificate suitable for framing for participation in the All Right broadcast. We hereby certify that you, Chris Lee, are officially awesome for being interviewed on this day, December 11th, 2020, for absolutely no monetary compensation whatsoever. Oh, is that? I got to say that on camera, that's why? Yeah. This is the best. Congratulations, and you're welcome. Yes,
That is the
very
best part.
nice.
I'm so
Very
glad
nice. Very nice.
you appreciate that.
Yes, lovely.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Lee, thank you so much to Tipitinas for letting us use the space. Thank you to Nugs.net for allowing us to use the equipment. I hope you've been enjoying this on Tipitinas.tv. Like I said, subscribe to the YouTube page. It doesn't cost you nothing, and we might actually earn $1 one day for doing all of this. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Lee from New Orleans, Louisiana is here to
Thank you,
kick
Tank.
your
Thank
ass.
you, Pete. Appreciate you guys for
Thank you to
having me.
that's right. The great Pete Jones doing lights and sound. Tan, the man upstairs, controlling the cameras. And Nick Logan for doing the editing, executive producing, and every other title that he feels like giving himself in the credits. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Lee.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. It was a real
fun,
pleasure.
right?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Super fun.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that's exactly what you want out of an interview. You know, the last time I did a long interview was a long time ago, and it was on the radio with Alice Cooper,
Yeah.
Nights with Alice Cooper.
Oh, did you like sit in the studio with him or something?
He called me.
How come we didn't record this part?
He called. He called me and asked if I wanted to be interviewed, and so when he interviewed me, he was like, he had some research. He's like, I found out some interesting about you, and he brought up the mom that's a preacher. He's like, my father's a Baptist minister.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought he was Jewish.
No. He's